Hello Stampers, this is Carrie Vacanti with Stampiphany, a great stamping idea. Today we're going to be making this pop-up card with the Eastern Palace suite that will become available on May 1st. I hesitated to do this video because looking back I think I would change the pattern paper that I used, but I do feel the layout is good and I do really like the idea and I hope you do too. So feel free to change up the colors or whatever you like. So this is a piece of Dapper Denim, and all the sizes and the supplies I use will be in the description box below. And we're going to start here by first just getting the layout done of the front of the card. So this is some of the dies from the Eastern Palace suite, and as you can see they can nest inside of each other. You can use them separately or together, and they interchange with another set of dies that I'll show you later in the video. Now if you were to use all three of them together or two of them together, I do recommend using some low tack tape like washi tape or painter's tape, just to keep them from shifting when you run them through your Big Shot. For the purpose of this card, we're just going to use this die right here. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on my magnetic plate. So remember, with your magnetic plate, you always want to use one of your cutting plates on top of that, and then of course your paper, your die, and then another cutting plate. So we want to make our sandwich like that. You never want to cut directly onto your magnetic plate because you could damage the plate. So I'm going to take that, and once you run it through your Big Shot, I'm going to show you here what actually happens with the die. It actually doesn't cut it completely out of the card, and that's actually an advantage because it gives you more versatility with this die. Now if I wanted to, I could just take the die that I just made and a pair of my paper snips, and what you can do is you can cut that die out just by snipping the little pieces that are still connected to the cardstock. So it's really easy to snip out if you just want to use the die. But for what we're doing today, obviously we're just going to keep that connected. Now that that is done, we're going to go ahead and emboss our greeting on the front here. And this is from the matching stamp set. And I really liked the saying that was on here. And we're going to use VersaMark because I'm going to emboss it in gold. I'm just trying to get that covered up with the VersaMark. And I really loved the font in this stamp set a lot. I've always liked mixing fonts together, you know, sans serifs together and some scripts. I just think it looks really neat. I like doing that. So this is what it looks like with just a VersaMark. And now we're going to take our gold powder. I'm going to get a piece of paper here first to do that. This way I can funnel all the powder back into my little container. And I've got some random pieces of paper in my gold, so just kind of ignore those. This is a well-loved box of gold embossing powder. Once I've spread that all over, I'm going to shake off the excess. And I didn't do this beforehand, but I probably should have. It's one thing that I really seriously forget all the time, and then I regret it most times. This time it turned out okay, but remember to use your embossing buddy. Just rub it over the cardstock before you emboss. It really does help cut down on the amount of excess powder in places that you don't want it. I just, looking back, I'm like, again, I forgot again. One of these days I'll remember. So once that's done, I recommend heating your tool up for about 20 to 30 seconds, get it good and hot. If you do that, it's less likely to warp your cardstock when you take your heat tool to the paper. This is especially useful if you're embossing on window sheets or vellum, or if you're embossing on some of our foil paper. You really want to cut down on the warping, and that's what that helps. So that way, since it's hot, you don't have to hold it to the paper very long. And also, if it's something like vellum, you might want to hold it to the paper for a few seconds, then pull it away, then hold it to the paper a few seconds. Just kind of repeat that process till it's completely embossed, and that'll also help cut down on the amount of warping that you get. So because I didn't use my embossing buddy, I have some powder that goes around the little edges of some of where the die cut got it. But I didn't mind it this time around. It kind of added to the look, so it was okay this time around. So I'm going to add some of our gold accents. These are also in that Eastern Palace suite, and with the bundle that you can get coming May 1st, you have the choice to get these in your bundle. There's going to be two different kind of bundles that you can get with that suite. There's going to be one that's just kind of like the Cadillac of all deals, and there'll be one that has a few less items. So it kind of depends on what your budget will allow or what you want to get. I went ahead and just got the whole thing because I knew I was going to love it. So I'm just adding some little trim here to the bottom of my card, and these are all self-adhesive. Makes it really nice. You can just stick it to your card. I didn't line up my card the first time along with those lines, and so the accent got crooked, so I had to tear that off. So use your gridded matte paper. It really does help to make sure that these get on straight. And you can see I repositioned the card, and that helps me to get that straight on there. So now that this is straight, adding the second piece for the embellishment, it can just go right up against that and it'll be straight as well. Now that that's done, I'll just trim those off and save those for another project. You can see these come with lots of different shapes and things that match this particular stamp set. I'm excited to be able to use those in other projects. This is where I noticed I had a little bit on the one side, so I'll just trim that off. And one ribbon that goes really, really well with this is some of our gold ribbon. I believe it's a 1/8 inch. Again, that'll be listed in the description box below. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that and just tie a little square knot. You could definitely do a cheater bow if you wanted to, and that's where you just straight up wrap the ribbon around just so it just goes around the front, and then tie a bow and stick it on separately, or tie a knot and stick it on separately, and you could definitely do that if you like. I just went ahead and tied it around. So I'm just going to do a square knot, and that's where you do your left over right, and then here I'm going to take this and just wrap it around my ribbon just to give it a nice pretty little knot. And this might take a little bit of practice, but you know, keep at it, you'll get it. If it faces the wrong direction, or if you find that you always seem to get it facing the wrong direction, try turning your card or your project upside down and then tying the knot. It doesn't always happen to me, but sometimes it does. In this case, I decided that I did want it facing the other direction, and if you find yourself in a similar situation, what you can do is just kind of bend the card just ever so slightly and just pull it off, turn it around or adjust it, and then you can put it back on the same way you took it off. And this of course worked because this isn't attached to the front of the card yet. So the gold ribbon is really, really pretty. I like that. So I think it accents really well with all the gold. So now that that's all finished, we can start to build the front of our card. And again, this is just an 8.5 by 5.5 piece of Dapper Denim, and this is some of our designer series paper that goes along with that. This is where I was working on the card and I got it done. I was like, oh, I don't know. I love the lime twist. I think it's really pretty, but I think it might grab too much attention away from the greeting and that little panel that we just made. But again, you know, give it a try. Try some different pieces of paper behind it. Perhaps maybe I should have used maybe brighter color, but sometimes it is when you're stamping. You just try things out. You never know till you try. So I do like the brightness of the green against the Dapper Denim. I do think it looks really cool. But again, I'm not so sure if it in the background was maybe too bright, but you know, I think the card still turned out fairly cute. So we're going to go ahead for now and put our inside panels, and this is some more of our designer series paper. You could surely skip this if you wanted to. You don't have to put this in the inside. I just wanted to, just to break up just the plainness of the Dapper Denim on the inside. And as you see that purplish color, that's one of our new in colors. It's Fresh Fig, really pretty. Really liking that. I'm excited about using that in some upcoming projects as well. So now that we have the inside done, we're just going to lay this off to the side. And, oh, actually, I lied. We're not. I'm going to add my little tags first. I forgot that I did that when I was making this card. And this is just some more of that lemon lime twist. I'm just cutting little flags here at the bottom. Because when I opened up the card, even with the blossoms in there, when they open, it just needed a little bit of an accent. So I'm just going to glue these on the inside with my snail adhesive. And also, I wanted that little green because I thought it would be a good way to add just a quick little message on the inside if you wanted to use that, or just straight up right on the designer series paper if you wanted to. Either one is definitely an option, and it's your card, so always take license. If it's your card, you do what makes you happy. Now that the inside is done, we are ready to move on to the inside, the little moving parts here. So this die that you see that made these is also in that die set that I showed you earlier, and it's interchangeable with those dies as well. So this is what it looks like, and I've got all three, as you can see, taped together with my washi tape, and that, especially since we're making 7 of these, comes in handy so I don't have to keep readjusting them every time I put them in my Big Shot. So here's one of them cut out. As you can see, it doesn't cut it all the way out, kind of the same concept. It just partially cuts it out. Makes it great, makes it very versatile, when you're doing cards. Because if you don't want to cut the whole way out, you just want to make a cool background or an accent, you could do that. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going around and just snipping off that little space in between each one of the petals. It doesn't take very long at all to do that. And definitely with this one, if you want to run it through a couple times, back and forth maybe, or if you have the precision plate, which works really, really well, I would use the precision plate with it as well. And so you want to cut out 7 of these. So here's what this looks like all cut out. And now that that's done, but I wanted to show you how they kind of match together. You can interchange those because they fit inside each other there, or the 2 middle parts do. So once you have all 7 of them done and trimmed out, it's time to do the folding. Now with this particular project, I got this idea I was watching videos on Facebook, and I'll link to that video down below. One of the things to keep in mind is that the flower that you use has to be very symmetrical. In other words, when you fold it in half, the petals match on each half. So that if you don't have that, it's going to be really difficult to make this work. So what you do is you fold it in half and you make it to where the petals all match up. So this one has 6 petals, or 8 rather, and you're going to fold that in half like this, making sure that the petals all line up together. Now you can unfold this and fold it in half the other way if you want to, just so you have a fold in between each one of those petals. And you can go around and do that, or you can just keep folding it in half like that. And make sure you have your bone folder with you just to give it a good crease. Now once you have all of those folds done, you're going to trim one of those petals out. And it's really easy. You just cut like a little wedge out there, and that you can throw away because you don't need it. And you're going to do that same thing with all 7 of your blossoms. Like I said, this one you just fold over and then just fold it over again. Just wanted to show that to you again so you could see that. And I did find it was quicker to do them all at the same time. In other words, instead of stopping and gluing, which you'll see in a little bit, but just fold them, cut them, and then move on to the next step. So now that we have all of them just about done here, I'm just going to cut this last one. Now that those are all ready to be glued, the next step, as you can see here, this is what they'll look like when they're all ready for the next step. Just laying them out here so you could see them. Get some liquid glue. I have a liquid pen here. I did not use our fine tip glue pen. You need a really strong adhesive because this is going to be pulled on a little bit. And don't go crazy with the glue, but make sure you cover that one little petal, and you're going to glue one petal over the top of the other. And make sure that you line it up the best that you can. And I just have getting a little tissue out here to wipe away any excess glue. The other reason I did not use the Tombow multi-purpose glue is because Tombow remains kind of tacky even when it's dry. And the glue we want to use is a glue that is strong, but yet when it's dry, it's not tacky, because what it could do is impede on the ability of the card to open up and the blossoms to come out like they're supposed to. So I'm just taking each one of these with my little pen here and just gluing a little bit, and just make sure that you soak up or get rid of any excess glue that might kind of scoosh out or whatever. We want these flowers to be clean. Basically, no adhesive where we don't want it. So just pick a glue that is, that you really like to use. So now we're on the last one here. All the rest of them are sitting there, as you can see, in the left-hand corner. And you want to give them a few minutes to dry, just to make sure that they're all good and dry. If you were to use, if liquid glue is not your thing, I'm not thrilled with liquid glue. I'd rather not use glue, but I know that there's uses for liquid glue like this. If you wanted to use a snail or a fast fuse, you can give it a try. Get the silicone mat underneath it. That would definitely help if you do that. And then just make sure you roll off or get rid of any excess of the snail or the fast fuse. So now that all of these are glued together, we're going to fold them in half again, and again try to make sure that your little petals are all lined up perfectly, or the best you can. So you can see here I'm just folding them all and getting them ready. And this is the best way to do it, because when you're gluing them together, you want to make sure you're gluing them together and you're not waiting. You don't want the glue to dry before you put these together, so they're all ready to go. You could use a simpler flower if you want to. I just thought this would be really pretty with the Eastern Palace, and I think it did turn out really pretty with this pattern paper. You can use cardstock, although I did found it made it much thicker and it was a little more difficult to work with, but you can try that as well. So we're going to get our little petals facing to the right, and we only want to put glue on this little top portion of the petal. We don't want to put it anywhere else, just at the top here. So I'm going to put some glue here on the top one, and I'm going to take one of my other ones and I'm going to match it up, and I'm going to put it right on top. And I'm just going to hold that down with my finger a little bit, and we want those petals to match up, and we're going to put one on the bottom. Now, once you've done this, you'll realize there is kind of a pattern to this, and you have to follow this pattern, as I found out the hard way, because if you don't, it doesn't work. So I've got the bottom petal here. I'm making sure that they match. Okay, and then I'm going to wipe away any glue that's extra, because we don't want that inadvertently sticking somewhere and then causing the card not to open. So here we are. We've got the bottom one that we started with right there, and then we have the two that we just glued right there and there. So the next step is we're going to glue again these three spots right here. So we're going to put glue just on that little top portion, and then we're going to take one, and again making sure that all our little petals match, and then making sure if there's any excess glue anywhere. And here I'm just picking it up just so I can try to make sure that I get all the petals to match up. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to put glue in these two upper parts right here. So we're going to skip that middle one on the right and just do the top two. So that one, we're going to get that one to match. And you'll notice we did not do the one on the far, far left. We just did that one, the two that I'm putting my fingers on right there. And then we'll repeat that process with the exact opposite side. Okay, we're going to put them right there. And I'm using my fingers to hold the other one down there. So we're going to put there. So I'm making sure they're all lined up. Now the last one we're going to do is those three on the right again. And this is our final flower here. Once those three are on there, of course, making sure they're always cleaning up the extra glue, making sure our little petals. Really, it helps a lot to take these steps now to make sure everything's lined up, because it'll save a headache later. So once that's done, I'm just going to put a block on it and let it dry for a little while. And then as you open it up and stuff, make sure it opens up. Gently open it up maybe a couple times to make sure it opens up. So now we're following the same process. We're just doing the little tips. And we're going to do that tip and then the opposite tip right here. Those are the only two that actually get glued to the inside of the card. Everything else, no glue. And we'll make sure those two pieces right there go to the center right next to your score. And I'm making sure that it's all lined up here so when I close it, it'll be where it needs to go. Now, one of the things I found with this card is that it doesn't open up completely flat, and if that bothers you, you could do double amount of these blossoms, just follow the same pattern. So instead of doing 7, you do 14, and it really will open all the way up, but it will make it thick. So here I had forgot to put the little accents on the front of the card, so while my moving part on the inside, I guess you could say, while that's drying, I'm just adding these little accents around the outside of my design here. The step set's kind of fun because it comes with all these little, for lack of a better term, doodads and stuff that you can just make all these cool little patterns with. So once you get that done and it's dried, that's pretty much it. Now all you have to do is make a cool message to go on the inside. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.